Welcome to Affirmation Conversations, where we delve into the transformative power of growth and resilience. I'm thrilled to have you join us today as we explore the theme of grow through what you go through, discovering your superpowers. My name is Jessica Marset, and I'm the CEO and owner of idoaffirm, a company that inspires and promotes positive thinking and self empowerment for all. Through insightful conversations and inspiring stories, we aim to uncover the hidden strengths within us all and discover how challenges can be catalysts for personal growth and empowerment. Joining me today is an exceptional panel member of people that I personally know and personally picked for this exact conversation. Patrick Wilson is a U.S. Army veteran and Butler University graduate in sociology and criminology with a master's in legal studies from Washington University of my hometown, the Lou, St. Louis, Missouri. Formerly served as a U.S. Army JAG Corps Diversity and Inclusion Program Specialist and paralegal. He is now the Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator at Finnegan, a global intellectual property firm. That was a handful and a mouthful. That was a lot, but that sounds good. You know your job is good when it sounds good.
Right.
Beatrix Hendricks is a mother of three daughters, Kinsley, Kaylee, and Pearl. She's a dual military spouse to her amazing husband, Chris, a mobility warrant officer in the Army Transportation Corps. B, a first-generation soldier, serves as an active duty legal administrator with nearly 14 years of service. Formerly a 27 Delta paralegal specialist, she hails from Queens, New York, where her Ecuadorian immigrant parents achieved home ownership and established minority-owned businesses while raising their three children. That's phenomenal. Welcome.
Yes.
Seriously. Peter Drummond, a Jamaican-born U.S. Army non-commissioned officer. She migrated to the United States in 1998 for studies and joined the Army in 2004. Currently, she serves as a command paralegal non-commissioned officer for the United States Army Forces Command. Alongside, she's a social media influencer offering regulatory guidance, coaching, and mentorship to veterans and soldiers across various Army components. Her family includes two children, one in Bible seminary and the other a high school junior, and her lovely mom. I had to shout out mom.
Yes.
Gail,
Hi.
I'm going to start by saying the other day, I think it was maybe like 4 or 5 days ago, my daughter sent me this screenshot. She was like, "Isn't this your friend? Do you know her? She's very popular on TikTok." I'm like, "Yes, that's her." Because she, obviously she recognized you, but she didn't realize you'd be like
Right.
TikTok popular. So her little friend just joined the Army and is in AIT right now. So these soldiers, they
Kudos.
definitely are, yes, they know
Yes.
you. And I guess he must have, showed her a video, and then she was like, "That's my mom's friend." And she's like, I'm like, "Yes." But no, you are literally reaching soldier all the way in advanced individual training. So that's amazing. I'm sure
Yeah.
basic too.
Thank you. Thank you.
So today we're going to have a conversation on growing through what you've gone through. And I tell you what, I am very ready for it. I know the three of you. I've known you for some years. Peter Gale and I have been friends for a while. Patrick, believe it or not, I would say I was his supervisor, but I will not. He was my partner. We were battle buddies. And Beatrice, I've also known Beatrice professionally for some years, but I feel like we've actually had some conversations too, on a personal level. Maybe not. I ain't been all in her business or anything, but I'm very ready for this one. So let's go ahead and start it off. And I'm going to start with you, Patrick. Share a personal experience with us where you faced a significant challenge and turned it into an opportunity for growth. And then the ladies, I actually do want you both to answer that question after as well.
Okay, absolutely. Um, I think for me, the one of the most recent significant challenges that I faced that I turned into an opportunity for growth was basic training. And the reason why I say that is because, for much of my life leading up to that point growing up, everyone kind of just thought I'd be successful, right? And they looked to me for everything. Like, hey, like, this, that. I was like the expert on everything. And so up until that point, like I looked at myself as a leader and felt like a leader, and most people looked at me as a leader. But when I got to basic training, that was the first time in my life where I was in an environment where I wasn't called to lead, but to follow, right? And so everything I knew about the world and how I viewed it, but also everything I knew about myself drastically changed in split seconds, right? Because people were no longer looking to me for answers, right? They were just giving me instructions, and I was looking to other people for answers. And so through that, I felt like, the old adage that people say, you have to learn how to follow before you can lead,
Mhm.
right? That was that for me. That was that experience for me. And through that, I'm happy to say that I learned how to be a better leader, right? Because I identified things in which I fell short, things in which I could have done better. And so when a few years later, when I finally became a NCO, a non-commissioned officer, and I had the opportunity to lead the soldiers, I took a lot of the experience and things and lessons I've learned from basic training and it kind of incorporated into my leadership philosophy, right? I was very much like prior to basic training, this is how I do things. You got to like it or whatever. But it helped me become more personable and understand that people come from different walks of life and being able to meet them where they are to be a more effective leader and helping them nourish and grow. And so I feel like for me that was a huge experience, not only just in my professional life but in my personal life as well. Being a better husband, learning to listen more to my wife about what it is not only that she's saying but what she's feeling, right? And how can I navigate that, like saying things like, okay, do you want me to give a response or do you want me to listen, right?
Mhm.
Rather than just here's the solution.
Oh,
And
yes.
so I attribute that to basic training and just being in a position where I'm dependent upon others, but also just having to follow and learn and absorb rather than being looked to lead.
That is
I like
awesome.
that,
Yes. Seriously,
especially the
that's
part
amazing.
about the husband. That's really good.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead, Peter Gayle. I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have several, but I will focus on one of the most recent ones. So you mentioned earlier about being a social media influencer, and that comes with its advantages and disadvantages. And last year, November, I was flagged for for content that I provided on social media to soldiers. One of the complaints was that I was being racist. The other comment was I was providing CUI. And the other comment was I was being a toxic leader, counterproductive leader is what we call it now in the military. And so unbeknownst to me, I did not know that I was going through this process because sometimes it's the accused or the person that's being investigated is not privy to the information until later on, right? And so it was a tough situation for me because being at the time 19 years in the military, now 20, I had never been flagged, never been adversely counseled in any way. And so it placed me in a position in the legal field, in a position where now I am the subject of an investigation, and it was not a good place for me. A lot of it internally, I internalized those feelings and had to depend on the folks at my church, my pastor, my mom to lean on. And it's not because I didn't trust people in that are my peers. It's just that I felt more comfortable in sharing an experience being an accused rather than with my peers, but with my with the folks that helped me to go through the difficulties that I normally go through. And so that experience was trying because now I got to see the other side of it, right? Because in the legal field, we normally look at what we normally are the on the prosecution side, and we're making sure that we get all the documents and the resources to make sure that justice is served and that the government is represented in a good light. And so me being on the opposite side of it opened up my eyes to certain things that were lacking in the regulation that we write as a legal fee, which is the 15.6 regulation, where as a respondent, as a the subject of an investigation, we don't have a lot of rights. And therefore, while I was going through that process, I spoke to my leader about updates to the 15.6 regulation and made it an opportunity for future respondents or accused to have a voice, right? So that I did a white paper on it and sent it up to my leaders, and they have presented that. And there's going to be some changes to the 15.6 regulation, and that's where you take a bad thing that you're going through and you may not necessarily improve it for yourself, but for the future of others, right? And so I think that was what helped me to go through the process, along with a praying mom. I'm telling you, my mother was on her knees praying for me all the time. And so that is something that was a learning process for me, because now I had to be the respondent and learn what the regulation said, and also given me the information to also make it better for the future of the Army. And so I think that when we go through things, that we have to look for, it sounds cliche, right? Hunt the good stuff. But we have to look
Mhm.
for those good things in the bad things that we're going through. It may not be for ourselves, but it may be for others. And at the end of the day, investigation was completed. It was founded that I did not do those things. And in the memorandum that the IO did, he recommended that I be awarded for my work on social media. So that was a positive outcome of it. So yeah, it was quite an
Oh my
experience.
God. First of
Yes.
all, thank you so much for sharing that, because I'm sure there are so many other people who'll be watching who have gone through that. And some people don't know that they do have the right, whether written or not, to really advocate for themselves. And I will say, knowing you, it's awful that you went through that, but I think you were the right person to kind of go through something like that, because as you spoke of the white paper and future changes to come, you are a change agent, and
Yeah.
you are a believer. That's why your mama was praying on her knees for you. and i
Yes.
and I feel like, I'm a person who feels like what's meant for you is for you. And so I feel like you were meant to be the vessel for that type of situation, although at your rank and your years in service, it probably had you worried. But coming atop of that, I mean, even with the IO's recommendation that you be, awarded for your work on social media, for that, I'm just like, wow. Like, it's shocking to hear, but it's also like, I almost want to say, I'm glad you were the one who went through it. I'm not, but like, wow.
I
Like,
definitely
awesome.
understand. I think the strength of the people around me helped me to go through that. And I think there are a lot of soldiers that go through this kind of situation, and it's tough for them. And it's because I knew what the regulation said, and I knew what my God um, can do and will bring me through, that made it, that much easier. I'm not saying that I wasn't worried. I'm not saying that it didn't bring, tears to my eyes at moments in time, but the ability to overcome it, it was not by myself. I couldn't do it without my family and the folks at church. So I'm happy it was me, in a sense. So
Yes, I agree. Thank you so much. How
you're
about you,
welcome.
B?
That's fantastic. So for me, I'm going to take it a little bit way back. I want to say one of the most challenging things I had to experience first coming up as an adult was when I first joined the Army and my reason for service. And so I do want to share that. And so for me, when I was in my senior year of high school, my father passed away. And I had like teed up scholarships and things that I wanted to do. And um, I made a choice and I didn't submit any of my stuff going into college. And so my senior year in high school, I struggled a little bit, and grieving is different for all of us, right? Um, but I found myself applying for a full time job as a legal assistant in a law firm in Queens, New York, and then going to school full time at night from 6 to 11. So I was a full-time student, full-time, working full-time. And my first year or my first semester was fantastic. Like I was like, okay, between FAFSA, I can figure this out. And then
Mhm.
second year, we'll figure out what we want to do, right? In community college at the time, I was in CUNY. And after going to school full time at night, making dean's list and working full time, my second year of college, they were like, yeah, sorry, you are making way too much in the civilian sector.
Mm.
You need to figure out how you're going to fund school if you want to continue on for a second year. And so God always has a plan. And that was what kind of was my reason to serve. And I found that I can, continue to pursue my education, um, get a GI Bill, and everything happens for a reason. So I found myself shipping off to basic training. after my first year of college, and that's never how I ever would have envisioned my life. But um, yeah, I had to find a way to reframe and find, a lot of reasons for um, moving on ahead. I wanted to do 4 years, and I said, I'm going to do my 4 years, get my GI Bill, go back to school, and I'll figure this out. Here I am, 14 years later. I found a calling that, for me was uh, a reason why on so many different levels. And it was the best decision I made in my life. I embraced it wholly, and then, here I am.
Well, thank you so much for sharing
Yes.
that. I completely understand. First of all, I really hate when they look at just income when they're trying to determine what people are eligible for. It's like they're not looking at these bills. Not your, BMW payment, right? Because you don't have to have BMW, but you have. If you want to have a job, you do have to have some type of car. You got bills. You have,
And
rent. I hate when they just look at just that. It's almost like they just want you to sit at home and do nothing just to get free stuff. But then they're going to
Right.
complain about it. But I do. This wasn't really one of the questions that I initially had, but I just realized that the three of you do have something in common. So I'm going to ask this question, and if you, feel that you can answer that, because I feel like a lot of people watching may have experienced this, and it's the loss of a parent. So I know Peter Gail has lost her father. Beatrice, you just talked about losing your father, and I know Patrick also recently lost his mother. Um, and so I kind of want to just ask you all, how do you deal with that? Like, how, because I, thankfully, right now, I still have my mom and my dad. Like, they're not even 60 years old yet. And as much as they drive me nuts, like, I really couldn't imagine, not being able to pick up my phone and see a text message from them every day, or, get a phone call from them, especially, around the holidays, or my birthday or something like that. So how are you dealing with life in the absence of a parent? And Beatrice, I'll go ahead and let you start since you just talked about your dad.
um, I mean, I was young and I was a daddy's girl. It was so hard those first couple years. And I would say I kind of just learned to embrace. Oh, the AirPod. Hold on one second, because real life
I know it's
happens.
the same thing.
um, okay. I kind of learned to embrace the memories and uh, like honestly, just it's crazy to to think through, okay, um there's a lot of things your parents tell you when you're younger that you just don't understand or put into
Mhm.
perspective when we're so young. It's almost annoying, right? Like, oh, dad or mom, yeah, I know, right? No, you really don't know. There has been moments in life where I've referred back to memories with both parents, but my dad in particular, and so many times have thought, like, you know what, he would be so proud, or that's exactly what he meant when he was talking about my ability to just be quiet and listen. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I've referred back to so many memories that have clicked on later on in life, and it's almost like he continues to give well after. And so I've learned to embrace it in so many different ways, and it's been a process.
Right, I can imagine. How about you, Patrick?
For me, I would definitely say two things: community and faith. Right, like um, I'm just surrounded by so many people who care for me. My family, who care for my mom, who just really like lifted me throughout those moments and um, embraced me. Uh, and then just my faith, like my perspective on pretty much everything that I deal with in life is that nothing is too big for God, and that
Amen.
Yeah.
yeah, everything He does, is part of His plan. And I have to trust in that plan. And so for me, as hard as it was, I've lived a pretty difficult life, but I've also had a lot of blessings, and I couldn't even envision that I'd be where I am today with the circumstances and things that I've gone through. So for that to happen, um, I just had to pour all my trust in him and say, okay, like it may not make sense to me right now, but I know it's part of your plan, whatever it is, whatever you is meant for. But then also that like she's at peace, right? And
Yeah.
that also brings
Right.
me comfort in knowing that she's at peace, she's in a better place, and that everything I do moving forward is gonna, continue to honor her and make her proud. So I try to just keep that in mind and take it day by day, and lean on my support system in my community. But yeah, for me, it's just community and faith.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. I'm definitely a go-to person for the they're at peace. There's a lot of things that we go through in this life, and there's a lot of things that people go through that we don't know of or we don't even understand. And
That's
I
right.
feel like the ultimate peace is the afterlife. So that is what really comforts me when I lose somebody
Mm.
as well. That faith that, they are at peace and there's better. How about you, Peter Gale?
So for me, it was a very difficult time because I had migrated from Jamaica to America to be an international student. And a year into being here, my dad was murdered in Jamaica. And I'll tell you, it was not easy. I got F's on every class because I was in the CUNY system as well in Queens. So we have that in common. And I got F's on everything. When I found out, I didn't even go to classes. And at the time, I grew up religious, right? We had an Anglican church that we went to, but when I just got to America, my family wasn't going to church, and so I wasn't really embedded in that. But I had to lean on other family members to kind of help me through that because I was at the time when he died, I was 19, and again, daddy's little girl. I think all girls are daddy's girls. And so he used to tell me I was the apple of his eye. And those things, I remember things about him. I remember the little comments that he would make and the conversations. And, I look forward now and I look at my brother. And you know my brother, Jessica,
Yes.
right? He looks exactly like my dad. My dad is a little bit lighter
Wow.
skinned, but he looks exactly like him. And so I a lot of my love and care for my dad is now embedded into my brother, right? And
Yeah.
I will do anything on this earth for him. So it's kind of like I kind of shift the love that I had for my dad. Still love him, he's gone, but and put that on my brother, right? I need to take care of him because I knew my dad more than he did. He died when he was 8 years old. And so I shifted all of that towards, hey, let me tell you about dad. This is what he used to do. This is what he's about. And I know you don't have this male figure in your life, but I will try to teach you how. And it's tough for a female to try to teach a man how to be a man.
Right.
But um, so that's where I geared it towards into my brother. And every time I look at him, I'm like, look at Percival Edward Drummond, right? I say, look at him. I said, you talk just like him. You look just like him. You
Wow.
act just like him. I think he came back in you.
He is your dad
Yes.
reincarnated.
And so
Yes.
that helps me to go through whatever I'm going through. And honestly, with my brother and my sister, those are the people that I feel more comfortable talking about my dad with because we can talk about him and don't have to shed a tear because we have this level of understanding that we love each other and we're the offspring of Percival Edward Drummond and he lives on in us. And so that's how I kind of deal with it as I go. And it's been several years, but still sometimes, even though time heals everything, still sometimes your heart aches because they're not present to see you walk down the aisle. They're not present to see your children, their grandchildren. They're not present to see your brother have get married, buy a home, right? Come to America and make a life for themselves. So it's still there's that hurt, but you can make it better by just focusing on the positive outcomes that they help to produce in life. So that's how I handle it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank the three of you for sharing your stories and for that vulnerability. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that can't be easy. I know that there's probably like a longing there that is kind of, never to really be filled again because of their absence. But I
Right.
really appreciate you all sharing your stories and then sharing with others how you managed to get through it, right? There's no ever really getting over it, but just kind of
Right.
getting through it every single day, one day at a time. So thank you. Well, that kind of leads us into the next question, which is how do you approach challenges in your own life? And what strategies do you use to stay resilient through those challenges? Patrick, I'm going to let you answer that first.
Um, my approach is to take on challenges head on, right? Um, I feel like being from New York, like we're very confrontational, very
First of
straightforward and
all,
direct.
the three of you have that in common. I just
Yeah.
want to point that
Yes.
out.
So,
Patrick, where
yeah,
in New York?
Brooklyn.
And then we have Queens. And then Peter, aren't you Brooklyn too?
Yeah, it was Queens. It was Queens.
Queens. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Nice. Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but I had to point out
no,
that
no worries. Yeah, yeah.
surrounded by all
So,
these New Yorkers.
very, very much straightforward, very much take it, head on. It's like how I like to take on my challenges. I don't like to really shy away from it. Um, because I feel like through challenges, and obstacles, there's growth. And I'm all about continuously growing. I'm never really satisfied with just remaining the same. Um, I like to call myself curious. Like I just have a curious mindset about things and the way I go about life. And so uh, I keep that in mind, but then also just I reflect a lot on my past. And like I said, I've been through a lot. And so every time something comes up, I'm like, oh, well, I've dealt with that, so I can do this. Like, oh, I went through that, so this is cake. And so that's pretty much how I look at my challenges and tackle them. And then if I do encounter something that's too large or too big or something that's different than anything I've ever done before, um, I think the biggest thing for me is not being afraid to ask for help, right? Saying, I don't say I can't do something because you can always learn how to do it. I may say, I don't know how to do this right now. Can you show me or can you help me? Right. But I don't really like to say I can't do something. But yeah, when I face an obstacle where it's like too big for just me, my community, my father, whomever, I'm like, hey, like I'm really struggling with this thing. I don't really know how to navigate it. Like, you have any insight that you can, share with me? And that's how I like to approach things, just straight on. And it's been working out for me thus far. So
Love that. Absolutely. Don't shy away from it. I think people
mm,
can definitely learn a lot from that. You can't
Yeah.
hide from it, right? You just
mhm.
have to tackle it and you have to have faith
Yep,
and just surround yourself with people who you can lean on in
absolutely.
those times of challenge. How about you, B?
For me, I'd say three things. Really, reframing my faith and my teammates, right? My village. And so reframing as far as like when things almost seem impossible, or sometimes when we're faced with challenges, our thoughts turn negative.
Mhm.
Reframing those in a positive light, right? Practicing giving people grace and the benefit of the doubt, right? Because sometimes when our thoughts tend to steer towards negative, our reactions are negative. So reframing into positive mindset. And then my faith, right? Everything happens for a reason. I grew up in a very, very old school, strict Spanish Catholic household. Right. And a lot of that has stuck with me throughout my life. And just knowing that God has a plan, there is a purpose and a reason why I am the one dealing with whatever it is that comes my way. Um, and that we will grow, right? Like there's a reason, there's a purpose. I will grow and learn how to tackle new challenges, do new things, and then having the humility to lean on my friends, that village, my teammates, because we were all, for me personally, I'm a firm believer that we were put on this earth to live in the community. And so having that humility to ask for help and know when you need to ask for help, and finding everybody's strengths around you that complement your weaknesses, and being
Love that.
very self-reflective of what those weaknesses are that we do have, because we're not perfect, and so that has kind of helped me throughout life just overcome all the things.
No, that's amazing. No, I absolutely liked what you said about finding people whose strengths complement your weaknesses. I think that's very important because I think what we do often is we surround ourselves with our community or a village of people who are just like us, and we will not grow.
Right.
And when we go through things, that if we want to be negative and our friend is in our ear being negative right with us, well,
Yeah.
there's not going to be anything positive, you know, of that outcome. So I love what you said, and I definitely hope people take that and put that in their bag, that advice that you just gave. How about you, Petey Gail?
So I have a little story. So Beatrice here, Chief Hendricks. When I went to 82nd Airborne Division, of course, sometimes you learn new stuff. And one of the obstacles that I faced when I just got there was trying to learn how to do panels and trying to do the post-trial portion of my job. And I sat down, I don't know if she remembers, but I sat down with her and another soldier. They were the post-trial and pre-trial NCOs. And I was like, okay, explain to me from after the charges go to the CG, what happens? And we sat down and she taught me step by step how to do this. And I was at the time a SAR first class. So I always go to the fact that regardless of what struggles you're going through, a soldier, your subordinate, your peer, whomever it is, can help you to get through that obstacle, no matter what it is. So I tend to not just focus on peers leading me or our supervisors being our leaders, but also your soldiers, right? And it kind of ties into our younger generation soldiers out there now, right? They're very smart and they have new ways of doing things. And I tend to like hone in on what they're doing and try to learn from them to present whatever I'm presenting. And it's been a very helpful process for me. And I know that Patrick had mentioned uh, going back to learning from your experiences. And I learned from the soldiers taking what they know in the civilian sector and presenting how I present to them on social media, meeting them where they're at. I think those were the words that you said, meeting them where they're at, right? So I have information to give to them, right? And how do I meet them where they're at? How do I overcome this obstacle of getting them the information in a manageable, consume in a manageable way format in which they can consume it and understand it. And I think TikTok was the way to get to that, right? Overcoming that obstacle where it's this generation versus that generation and how we think, right? How we think and how we deliver things is not necessarily how they do that. And so I had to learn how to do that and provide them the information. So yeah, that's one of the obstacles I had to overcome in dealing with our younger generation soldiers.
Oh, I love that because
Yeah,
people have this idea of like heroism in their mind, right? And it's
right.
always this person who appears, so perfect. They're usually older, they're usually stronger, we think they're smarter, but I'm glad that you mentioned that you can learn from the bottom up, right? You can learn from your
Yes,
kids, you can learn from your subordinates, you can learn from those people that you supervise. People really don't think about that too often.
right.
It's like, and I love that because I do, and Patrick will tell you because we always made decisions together. I never once was like, okay, I'm a chief warrant officer 3 and you're a sergeant. So at the end of the day, what I say is just going to be, I'm like, no, Patrick, I have this idea. What's your idea? Or how can your ideas complement the idea that I have so that we together can collectively come up with the best idea?
Yes,
And I never ever would present things as like my idea. It was so collective with him and I. I'm like, it was always our idea. And I love
right.
that because not just people from different generations, but it's really that diversity aspect of it. Everybody's story is different, everybody's journey is different, everyone's thoughts and contributions are therefore different. And so I really love, I feel like I haven't worked really in a team for at least a year, like since I retired, because I work 100% remote from home. I work on a project almost solely by myself. I do have two other people on the project, but because I lead it, I kind of only lean on them when we're giving updates or, when it's something big. But I love having that team idea. I always feel like the outcome is going to be better if the input is from more than one, always. And so I would
Yes,
definitely encourage people to understand that you don't have to grow by making decisions in a vacuum. You don't have to grow through what you're going through by yourself. It is so much better when you solicit the opinions and advice of others who are diverse from you, right? We don't want the same type of thinkers. And they may just be younger, they may be someone that you supervise. Thank you for that. Because especially in the
Yes.
military, like people
Yes.
don't really check down. They don't
Mhm.
really ask, like, what do you think? Because they think that they know it all. They think that their
Mhm.
experience says it all. They think that their education is superior to that subordinate. And it's not. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
Young,
there's a saying that if you enter a room and you're the smartest person in the room, it's time for you to leave that room and
I
find a
love it.
different room. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you're not growing,
Right.
right? How can you grow when everyone in the room is looking up to you? You need to be in a room with people that you look up to so that you can too grow. Absolutely. Thank you so much for throwing that out there. So I have a question. Do you all use affirmations when you're dealing with challenges and setbacks? And maybe it's not very deliberate. Like, people have this idea that affirmations has to be something that you literally just stand in front of the mirror and recite to yourself. It's like a mantra. But it doesn't have to really be that deliberate. How do you use affirmations when you are going through challenges and setbacks? How about you, Beatrice?
So, I've never really called them affirmations, but as I thought through, what we're talking about today, I think I absolutely can consider some of the things that I've kind of find myself often repeating to myself in times where I face challenges, and I think one of the biggest ones that I've used often is "You can, and if you want, you will."
I love that.
Period. Like you can, and if you want, you will,
That's
right?
all.
Um, and yeah, it's powerful, it's strong, and it just kind of reminds me that, um, you know, when there's a will, there's a way, right? That's
Yeah.
one of the things my parents used to tell me, and my dad used to tell me all the time, right? When there's a will, there's a way, and that's one of the things I say to myself often and repeat to my daughters. Now,
No, I absolutely agree with you. And Patrick kind of talked about a little bit earlier when he said he doesn't really say that he can't do something. He might not know how, but he's going to figure it out. And that's that will and way. It's like if you want something in life bad enough, you will get it. It might not take you 2 weeks like it may take someone that you know, right? Like this girl I knew. It might not take you 2 weeks like this person on social media who probably has, a village of people helping them get there. But if you're making progress every single day towards that thing that you want and you have the will and you
Right.
have the power to just keep going every day and the strength and the motivation and the resilience, it will come to you. Whether it's 10 years, 20 years down the road, and by that time, if it's meant for you, it will be for you. And you will appreciate it even more because you know the hard work that you had to put into getting it. And I really do appreciate, like, sometimes we don't realize, like, our journey, we just want things to happen very quickly. But when things don't happen quickly, and when you do put a little bit of blood and sweat and things and you do accomplish them, I honestly feel like so much happier and so much more proud of myself um, when that happens. Like, it's cool. Like, sometimes, I just want quick wins. But those really rough and tough things, they make you stronger. They make you a stronger person. They make you a believer in yourself. And that's another thing that people lack. People lack the belief in their self that they can do something. And that's that Beatrice spoke about. How about you, Patrick?
But along the same lines as B, I mean, two things that I kind of tell myself, depending on the circumstances. One is similar to B in that if you think you can't, you won't. If you think I'm no, if you think you can't, you won't. If you think you might, then you may. But if you know you can, you will,
Oh, I
right?
love that.
And so my dad always tell me all the time, I need to stop speaking in with such certainty. He's like, he always speaks with like, I said, I'm gonna take the LSAT and I'm apply to law school. He goes, well, you might have to take it twice. I'm like, I'm gonna take the LSAT and I'm apply to law school, right?
Right.
Because it's like I have to tell myself I can do it, and I'm not naive, right? It may take me a
Hmm.
couple attempts, but if I allow any doubt to seep into my brain or to my heart or my mind, then it can grow. So when
Right.
I speak about things or speak to my abilities, some people may view it as arrogance or whatever or naive, but I'm very aware, that,
Mm-hmm.
it may not happen as quick as I may want it to or as fast as I think it will. I'm very aware of those things. But for me and how I tackle life and function, right, I have to do that, right? But I also keep in mind the other thing, nothing worth having comes easy,
Mm.
right?
That's right.
And so with those two things, I feel like I can pretty much do anything and tackle anything. And
Yeah.
those are two things that I tell myself whenever I'm facing adversity or whether I'm about to, try to tackle, accomplish a new goal. It's all right. You can do this. You got this. And it may not happen as quick as you wanted to, or it may not, look the way you thought it was going to look, but it's going to get done.
Yes. And we appreciate you, Dad, because what Dad is just saying is he's
Yeah,
just trying to set you up for the what ifs, right?
for
He's
sure.
not telling you to not have,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
faith in yourself or that assurity. He just,
Right.
Hmm.
it's just he just being a parent.
No,
But no, you're
absolutely.
absolutely right. And I don't really like people to be speaking negative things, especially if you're speaking them about a situation of mine, because I do feel like what you put into the atmosphere is what you're going to get. And so it's really about that positive self-talk. Like you are telling yourself, hey, I'm going to pass the LSAT, I'm going to get into law school. And it's because you really have the motivation and the desire to do it. And so you're going to
Hmm.
persevere through any challenges, barriers, and setbacks. You know that it's a possibility that you might have to take it twice. But what
Hmm.
you're saying is it's going to happen.
Yep.
It might not happen the first time, but I'm not going to speak that into existence. I'm not going to
Right.
Hmm.
speak that what if, because that what if could become a what now? Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
So absolutely, there is power in words. I'm sure we've all heard it,
Yeah.
especially being people of faith. There is power in words, and you need to surround yourself with positivity, or the negative will seep into your life. I mean, and if you do surround yourself in positivity, when the negative does seep into your life, which it will, right? You know how to handle it.
Mhm.
How about you, Peter Gale?
So similarly, my thought process, the words of affirmation that I use is I can, and it comes from I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? So
Amen.
when I'm having a bad time, when I think this thing is hard, when I feel like I cannot overcome an obstacle, I'm like, I just say I can do it. And then I write on my board, there's a board in my office that I write not necessarily words of affirmation, but they are that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of them, they are, right? And I put, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, or God never gives me more than I can handle, right? And so those two things combined makes me feel like I can do anything. And if I feel like at any point in time that I cannot, then I can reach out to the resources who knows how to do those things, and they can assist me with that process. So I try to keep those words up on my board. Recently, I wrote one which was never leave for tomorrow what I can do today, right? Because you never
Yes.
know what tomorrow
Tomorrow not
brings.
promised. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
those words help me to go through the obstacles of the day, go through, the taskers that I have to do, help me to communicate well with people, or, try to figure out ways to maneuver whatever difficulties, obstacles, challenges, tasks that may come my way.
I love that. Well, what I can definitely see from the three of you all, that you all have identified and found ways to leverage your proverbial superpowers, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to others who may not yet know their strengths? They may not yet know their worth, and so they therefore don't know how to leverage that to accomplish things or have this same will and motivation that you have. How would you encourage people to find their strengths, and then when they find them, to use them? What would you say, Patrick?
Um, well, I was going to take a lot of self-reflection, right? But for me, I feel like my strength lied in things that I enjoy doing, things that make me happy, right? And from a very young age, it was for me serving others. Like I got joy, whether it was, a community service event, whether it was assisting with X, Y, Z, whether it was just getting food for a homeless, like whatever it was, like that gave me joy. And so now, in the work that I do as a diversity and inclusion coordinator, a lot of those strengths are coming to the forefront because the nature of my role is to serve people within my organization, right? And so I get to lean heavily into that. And it wasn't something that, I initially knew, right? Because to be totally honest, I thought, I wanted to be a doctor. That service too, right? Chemistry had other ideas, so it didn't work out. But, you know, in pivoting in my career, path and what I wanted to study, I still found a lane in which I can do, but service looked different than what I thought it would look like. But I felt for me, like again, like a lot of your strength lie in what you enjoy doing. And if those things, benefit others, make others happy, spread positivity, love, and joy, awesome. Right? Lean into those things. And then, like I said, it's just self-reflection, meditation. For me, I went through a period where I really had to, reflect internally on the type of person I want to be and the type of boundaries I want to set. Because as much as I love to serve, sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming when you give so much of yourself to others and other things that you're exhausted, filling everybody
Yes.
else's cup and your cup is looking like my bottle here. Right.
Right.
So,
Dry.
yeah. So,
Listen.
a lot of self-reflection and figuring out, all right, this is what I'm capable of, this is my limitations, this is what I'm comfortable with, these are my boundaries, and then expressing that to people, and so that's where I feel like my strength comes from, where you can also begin to find your strength.
I love that. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Yes.
Absolutely.
And I like that you said find things that you love. In our world, sometimes people don't have the opportunity to do that. Like some people just trying
Yeah.
to make it to tomorrow, some people just trying to make it to the next meal. And
Hmm.
so they end up in situations doing things just for survival. So doing things that they love, it seems more like a luxury.
Yeah.
But and I will just say this, like I always tell people, like anybody can be an entrepreneur. I mean, you have to have that spirit, you have to have the drive and you can't be lazy. But I always tell them, find something that you love, right? Make a list of the things that you love. And then ask yourself, out of those things that you love, what are you really good at? Like, you might love playing sports, but are you really good at it? Because
Hmm.
if you're not good at it, then you won't, go past step 3, which is, can you monetize it? Can you offer this as a good or a service to others and make money from it? And I feel like if more people are taught that early on, then people would have a different type of success because they would be doing what they love. And when you do stuff that you love, that joy is always going to win over the monetization. Like, I don't really care if I make a lot of money from it. I'm happy. The joy is priceless. So definitely thank you for sharing that. I appreciate and I agree with that as well. What about you, Peter Gale?
I think that looking at yourself is important, but sometimes you have to rely on others, right? Because if you're very young, you probably think that, hey, you know what? I'm the best thing since sliced bread, right? I am it, right?
Yes.
And or we can at times be our worst critics, right? We put ourselves down, we're not capable. And so in order for us, I think, to assist with finding what our strength or our weaknesses are, we should get a mentor, right? Because whether that's in the civilian sector, find someone, right, who you look up to. There's some sort of similarities with that person, and get feedback from them. Now, if it's a mentor, then it should be constructive criticism, right? Not just critiquing just because they don't like how you do things because you didn't do it the way that they did it 2 years ago, 10 years ago, right? And so I think having mentors is will be helpful. And again, earlier we talked about, not necessarily having the people that look like us or do things like us or communicate the way we do, but diversify your mentors, right? Maybe you want to have a mentor that will focus on leadership. Maybe you have a mentor that deals with your personal life aspect of it, right? And then get that feedback from the mentor. And I think that will help you to identify what some of your strengths and weaknesses are. I tell folks all the time, whenever you're looking for a mentor, you got to get to know that person on a personal level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you know that person on a personal level, what your recommendations are will not interfere with their personal life. What do they hold near and dear to their heart, right? Children, church, work, whatever it is, sports. That mentor should know those things so that when they're giving me that feedback or you that feedback, then it is not something that's contradictory to their beliefs or morals or values. I think so.
Absolutely.
mentors are important in helping us to identify our strengths and weaknesses.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I do feel like, in the military, mentors are definitely talked about, whether or not, it's really a function that is used as well as it can be. But I feel like a lot of kids can benefit from that, and they just don't get it. I often feel like most people only get mentors as children in two situations. They come from an affluent family who has access to certain resources, and then they have these people mentor their children, and it's really not even a mentor, it's just some person who's doing well in life that they want their kids to be connected to.
Right.
And then on the contrary, it's when people are from underprivileged situations and circumstances, to where the government or maybe your school puts you in touch with a mentor to kind of guide you through the things that you're going through. But what about all those other people in the middle, you know,
Right.
not forced mentorship because of some program that you're in, but real mentorship for not just, the youth, but young adults. Can you imagine? Like, did you really know what you wanted to do between 17 and 25?
I thought I was going to be an
Absolutely not.
office manager.
Girl, I thought I was going to be a lawyer or a teacher. And after working with lawyers for a while, I learned, no offense, Patrick, I definitely didn't want to be one of them folks. Lawyers are awesome though, like, but I just didn't
Yeah.
want to deal with the things that they dealt with, right? But no, I would definitely say mentor. That's a great answer. How about you, Beatrice?
Yeah, I have to second a lot of the two. Mentorship and self-reflection are huge. I'll throw in, know your why, like what our motivation is for
Yes.
pursuing whatever goal we're passionate about, because that's going to be what gives us the strength to get back up when we have those setbacks along the way, right? Those speed bumps and stuff like
Yes.
that. We've got to have that self-reflection, like Patrick said, to know what our strengths and weaknesses are.
Mhm.
And a lot of that self-reflection develops over time and experience personally. Um, but yeah, if you don't really understand or have that why solidified to help in those most challenging times when it feels like you just can't,
Yes.
um, you will when you find that motivation. And for me personally, I can say it's my children, right? Like I know they're always watching, right? And uh, most days I feel like I argue with myself sometimes, and we need to nip it in the bud with my little mini, and it's a challenge, but that's my why, right? Like because I know she's gonna learn from the mistakes I make. I know she's watching and seeing how I handle and tackle adversity, challenges, and all the things, and I want to be a better person and be a good example for my girls. And that is my why in everything I do. And it's given me the strength to get through all the things.
I love that. Yeah, I've definitely heard that know your why a lot. And I will definitely say in the entrepreneurial space, they always tell you to start with why. But I would say that that applies across the board, no matter what type of, journey in life that you're going through. Sometimes, like, if we don't know our why, if we haven't identified it, we really don't have that push, right? We don't have that push that we need to keep going through the setbacks, the challenges, the barriers, the adversity. But when you're doing it for something other than yourself or bigger than yourself, because you really can't be your own why, like, it just can't, you know,
Yeah.
it's not going to work. But if like, just think, like, when I think of this, I think of, back in the day where a man would go to work and then the woman would be at home with the children, and his work was backbreaking, right? But he knew his why was that family that he made, that wife that he promised, to support and take care of, those children that he knew she was taking care of and supporting while he was away, just really putting the food on the table and keeping the lights on. And it's like, you think that man wanted to go to work, 80 hours a week? No, but his wife was his family. And then the same for that woman at home. Do you think that maybe she really didn't want to be at home? Not really having her own dreams outside of the home with them kids all day, whether they hers or not. No, I love my child to death, but she know I want her to be around me 24/7. And she doesn't want me to be around her 24/7. But that woman at home, that homemaker, her why was the same. Her why was her family, right? And so you also have to surround yourself with people whose whys are kind of yoked with yours. Because if you have someone, you're married to someone and your why is family, but their why is money, well, they're going to be
Mm.
chasing the money and you're going to be the only one trying to keep the families together. So, absolutely agree with all three of you all. All three of you all just gave incredible advice to everybody. And I really do hope that they take it, again, put it in their backpack or their purse, whatever you carry, it doesn't matter. We cool. We don't care, but just refer to this because what they just said is absolutely true. So I will also ask, and I don't normally make this affirmations conversations very like faith based because I do respect the diverse religious beliefs of
Mhm.
everyone. But it is very apparent to me that all three of you all are very grounded in your faith. And so I will ask you, um, how does maintaining faith contribute to the personal growth and resilience that you each have had? Because it is very clear from a lot of your answers to these questions that I've asked that faith is first for you all. So, Peter Gail, what would you say?
I would say that, so like I said earlier, I grew up in an Anglican church, and then when I migrated to America, I kind of wasn't going, but then got back into church one couple of years in being in the military. And I will say that surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, right? So if you have faith in something and you are surrounding yourself with people who disagree or disapprove, then it is likely that you're going to move away from that and you're not going to have the faith in that thing that you hold so near and dear to your heart. So it's kind of like the saying, iron sharpens iron, right? It's not a biblical saying, but it's something we say when you're a Christian. Iron sharpens iron. That means you be around people who will strengthen you in certain things. So if my weakness is, you know, excessive drinking, for example, I know that I can't be around someone that does that. But I can surround myself with people who would be like, okay, I know you're going through this struggle, but hey, let's go to this event, or let's go pray about it, or let's go have a Bible study, or let's go do these things to strengthen you. So I try my best to stay away from certain things now in at this age in my life, this stage in my life, I would say, and try to surround myself with people who I know will encourage me to do the right thing, because we got people encouraging us to do the wrong thing all the time, right? Hey, come do this with me, come go here with me,
Absolutely.
come, right? And so you have to find that community, the brothers, the sisters, the pastors, your mom, you know,
Mhm.
your brothers, whomever it is, that will help to encourage you through that. So it's a lot of, for me, prayer, reading my Bible, focusing on the right things in life. If I find myself getting too caught up in something that's taking away a lot of my time from the things that are important, which are my God, my children, my job, then maybe that thing is not as important as it should be in my life. And then I try to shift, stay away from that thing. So again, back to being around like-minded people with like-minded views that can encourage you to do the right thing, because we have a lot of people already encouraging us not to do the right things. So that's how I deal with that.
Absolutely. I love that. How about your faith, B?
I honestly, like I told you all, I grew up in a very strict Catholic household. My my views on a lot of things and how I've pursued um, staying grounded in faith has been there has to be, it doesn't matter, religion wise, just having something greater than yourself and acknowledging that has been huge. And I tell my girls all the time, like there is a greater power than you, and in this house is God, right? What you choose that to be as you grow up and have different experiences and all that stuff, that's great. But there is a higher power, and we don't take anything for granted, and just staying
Right.
strongly rooted um, in faith, and there's life after death, right? And so all of this is temporary. We learn, we grow from it, we leave our mark on this earth, and there's life after death, right? Like that has that is truly been a big reason, uh, behind um, you know, my faith and why I pursue things the way that I do, and am very mindful of what is that mark I want to leave in this earth when I'm gone.
Absolutely. I will definitely say, and I want you to answer that question as well, Patrick. I always tell people, two things. First of all, it's better to believe in something and not know that it exists than to not believe and later find out that it does. First of all, because
Agree.
child, it's too late then. Too
Yes.
late. And then second of all, I really feel like having belief in a higher power, regardless of what you think it is. For me, it's God. I grew up Baptist, so Christian, New Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. We was there all the time. But I feel like when you believe in something higher than yourself, it just really helps you to travel down the path of life, wanting to be a better person, wanting to do better. I feel like it just really gives you a better sense of morality. Like there is no harm in it, really. I feel like it makes you more conscious, right? It has you question yourself a lot, especially when you're maybe going into those swaying into those waters of things like you said, Peter Gale. There's just many things out here, so many people trying to convince you to do the wrong thing. But when you have a faith in a higher being, then you just have this consciousness about yourself, and it makes you want to just say the path and do the right thing, whether
Right.
or not.
Mindfulness, yes,
Yeah, the
Yes.
mindfulness. That's what
mindfulness.
comes.
You're just mindful. I feel like it helps you to be a better person for others and for yourself.
Right.
For some people, seeing is believing, but some people believe in a whole lot of stuff that they haven't seen. But to have faith is very hard for them for some reason.
I know that's
Right.
right.
But I digress because I don't want people to think that that I care either way what your faith is, because I don't. Because right, it's a personal journey that you have
Right.
to
It
go,
is.
and I respect it, and I'll listen to your explanations as to why. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna stand firm in mine for sure. Patrick,
For me, so my grandmother had us in church Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, regularly, and
Bible study, choir
yeah,
practice.
yeah, everything. And
That's me
so,
right now.
uh, as I got older and started to make decisions for myself and, become more curious about the world, I definitely, can stay out straight a bit away from my faith because, like, to me as a kid, like, such concepts didn't make sense, But then as I got older, and to be in the place where I am today, for me, the reason why my faith is so strong is because I don't know what else to contribute my success to. Like to be where I am today, as awesome as I may think I am, I'll be the first person to tell you I don't know how I got here. Right. Like I didn't map this out. This wasn't my plan to be here. Like I didn't say, when I was 5, 6, yeah, I'm gonna be, this at this age. Like I can't, and so the only thing that makes sense to me is that he orchestrated it,
Right.
that this was his plan, this was his path, and that gives me a level of comfort. And when I do face, like we talked earlier about obstacles, or we talked about barriers, or whatever the case may be, it gives me a sense of peace knowing that nothing is too big for me because when it comes my way, I'm like, well, this is just part of his plan. So I know if I'm going to overcome it. you
Right.
know I know this is just temporary. I'm going to get through this because everything that happens is part of his plan. It's meant to be. And so that is what constantly just fuel my faith, is just that knowing that, reflecting on my life, seeing where I am today, and knowing I could not, I don't know how I got here. um I wasn't the most, I'm not gonna say I wasn't the most studious, right? I just felt like my wife, for example, she's extremely intelligent, but she's also a very, very hard worker, very diligent student. I'm gonna be very honest. When I was in school, I'm like, I'm gonna be on this. Cool, that's fine. I'm like, I'm not gonna go the extra mile to try to get the A. Like, I want to
The
go play
destination is
basketball.
the same.
Exactly. I'm like, I can get it done.
My
So
husband's definitely A. And I was until I realized in my master's program that school didn't give like summa cum laudes or magnum. They
mhm,
didn't give those type of things. So I was like, oh, child, I'm working way too hard. But
yeah.
do your
And so
best.
absolutely. But yeah,
Whatever your best is.
that's what I would say for myself.
I love that. No, that's funny. That is so funny. So before we wrap up, I want to give each of you three the opportunity to kind of just give some closing words to everyone on this topic. And I
Mhm.
also want you to, like, I know Peter Gill, I definitely want you to share your TikTok. But if the others are, doing something that you want people to know about, please, I want you to share that as well because um, there's probably something that you said here today that could have inspired, another Ecuadorian, young lady or another Catholic young lady or another immigrant who is trying to make it, or someone who's lost a parent, or a young Black man who's trying to navigate success and he may not be surrounded by, the type of community or council to where he feels that he can actually achieve it. So, all of you are definitely here for a reason. It was with intention that I asked the three of you to be part of this particular conversation. So, as you wrap up, I want you to give some advice and then tell people, how they can reach out to you, even if it's just like LinkedIn. And I'm going to start with you, Beatrice.
I'm gonna use my affirmation. You can, and if you want, you absolutely will. Right? I have personally grown through every single experience that God has put my way, and that I have, had to figure out along the way. Right? Whatever that might have looked like. Um, there's so much growth and there's a plan for each and every one of us why we are put in a particular time, place, or location, surrounded by whoever that may be. Um, Embrace it, and you can. And if you want, you will.
I love that. Thank you so much, Beatrice. I'm definitely going to put that in my toolkit. I believe it, but I'm going to make sure that I say that to myself a lot more often. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of things that I won't. So my wheels are going to have to be triaged a little bit, but
Priorities, priorities.
priority. Yes. How about you, Patrick?
I would just, can I issue a challenge? I want to issue a
Absolutely.
challenge. So my challenge would be to think like a scientist, right? And I don't want to take credit for this because I had a wonderful speaker who came and spoke about this, but it just stuck with me. And I continuously think like this, but think like a scientist, right? Because scientists expect failure. And I feel like a lot of the conversation we had today, much of that fear, when it comes to we talk about affirmations or we talk about overcoming obstacles, much of our fear relies in being afraid to fail, right? But if you think like the scientist and you kind of anticipate failure, then everything will be okay. Because the thing about failure is that failure doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Learn and grow from those things, right? And then if you're in a position where people are dependent upon you, whether it's a leadership position at work or whatever it may be, cultivate an environment where it's okay for people to fail. That's the other aspect of it, right? Because if I'm comfortable with failing because I know I can grow and learn, right? But the environment I'm in, it's not one that's going to give me a second opportunity when I do that. That can be a challenge as well. So my challenge is twofold. One, adopt the mindset of a scientist. Embrace failure. That's part of life. It's natural. Like learn from it, grow. But also in your life, show grace to those who may not meet your expectations, right? Who may fail, who may disappoint you, right? It's okay. It can be a learning moment. You can grow from it, teach others. But that's my challenge, right? It's just embrace failure, think like a scientist.
That's absolutely awesome. I love both of those points, especially the think like a scientist, because They hypothesize things,
Yep.
but they don't know the absolute outcome
Mhm.
of, what it is that they're trying to find the answer to. And a scientist, they don't just stop. I mean,
Yep.
we don't have like, a cure for AIDS that has been around for decades because someone decided, oh, well, that didn't work. So let's just go try to find a cure for, gangrene. I mean, they kept trying, and with every failure, there is growth.
Yeah.
There is growth. There is opportunity for growth. So I absolutely love that. And thank you so much, Patrick. That was remarkable.
Cool.
Peter Gale?
I would say I leave with a couple of things. The first Bible verse, which was, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, which ties into what Patrick and Beatrice said about, you can, right? I would say that whenever there is an obstacle, know that if that obstacle is present, that means God knows you can overcome it. And sometimes we see ourselves in this box and we think that we cannot just because it's something harder than we're used to, or something that we've never experienced before. But know that if something is present in front of you that is an obstacle, know that you can overcome it. And someone out there has done this before. Nothing that we do nowadays is new,
So
right?
true.
So know that you can lean on someone to help you overcome that obstacle. And when you do, you can learn from it for yourself, and you can learn from it for others, not to keep to yourself, but also to share, so that person who's going through that obstacle can know how to easily maneuver it, rather than learning from their own experience. They can learn from yours. I'd also say this, in my lifetime being on social media, and I'll give you my handle in a minute, right? Um, I've learned that sometimes I see that there are Black females on social media that always ask the question, being a Black female in the army, how do you maneuver that? And I say to
Mhm.
them, do not allow labels to limit what you can do within your field, your MOS, whatever it is. Because sometimes folks say, okay, it's because I am this gender, or it's because I am this race, why I'm not progressing, rather than it being, I know I am this gender, I know I am this race, and regardless of what other people think of me, or the limitations and restrictions that society has for me, I'm going to move outside of that. I'm not going to stay within that limitation. I'm not going to stay within that box. I am going to work hard to get out of that mindset, to get out of that thought process, and progress in my personal life, in my work life, in my military life, whatever it is. And just so you know, handle is on TikTok, it is me this, which is a_me_dis on TikTok, or digital 4856, which is short for counseling statement.
And Peter Gale, just to be clear, is that's hilarious. Is when you said the A_me, is the me ME or MI?
I think it's ME. It's ME.
Okay, perfect. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure it's not to be clear. No, I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. And that reminds me, and I'll just wrap up and say, we often ask in situations, whether good or bad, we say, why me?
Mhm.
I challenge people to ask the question instead, why not me? When something good happens to you, don't lead with that self imposter syndrome like
Mhm.
thinking and say, oh, why would this happen to me? Well, why not me? Are you not worthy? Are you not capable? Did you not work for this? Um, and then in a situation where it's the opposite, maybe it's a bad situation, you're asking, why me? Why not
Mhm.
you? And like Peter Gale said, you're going to grow through those challenges. You're going to, you've already overcome so many. That's why you're still here today. So some of your challenges are going to be a little bit harder, right? They're because we're just trying to see how God, really, the person that you have your faith in, is really just trying to see how you pass this test, because clearly you've already passed the others. So instead of asking why me, I highly challenge people to instead ask why not you,
Right.
and pay attention to your answers. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to thank our incredible guests for sharing their wisdom and experiences with us, and especially for your vulnerability. Remember, no matter what life throws your way, there's an opportunity to grow and discover your own superpowers. And we all have them, no matter how young, how old, no matter what your bank account looks like, no matter what the refrigerator looks like, we all have superpowers. I encourage everyone to keep embracing the journey. And until next time, stay resilient and keep thriving. Thank you all so much again, Peter, Gail B, and Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.